A very good evening to you, and thank you for staying with us. We're in conversation with the Acting Director General of Communications, Nomvuyiso Batyi, talking about the latest regarding the communications and digital technologies and the fourth industrial revolution in South Africa. Now, just before the break, we're talking about the merger of Centec and Broadband Infraco, and you're saying, so this is a done deal. How is the new regulating model going to work?
Okay, it is a done deal. So at the moment, what we're doing is actually checking as to how best to reposition the new company. However, we do know that there are weaknesses in either company. So when we go to this one company, that will be supposed to be efficient. We're supposed to realize the gains that were lacking in the last couple of years. So that is what we're doing at this point. So in the next couple of months, the merger will be finalized. There will be legislation that will be introduced to say this is the name of the new company, and the name of the company will be in place on this X date. So we have timeframes that we've put on the table for us to actually realize.
One of the main obstacles that have been identified as one of the obstacles that can really block South Africa and South Africans from making use of the fourth industrial revolution in technology, etc., is the incredibly high cost of data, which is also a concern for the department. Tell us how you plan to mitigate that and how the cost of data is actually going to be brought down.
So the cost of data, we know that sitting here that the Competition Commission has released the report. As the department, were quite concerned, and there was a policy directive that was released to ICASA to actually effectively regulate data pricing. So ICASA is the one that is mandated to actually reduce the cost of data. So in July this year, Minister published a policy directive on the high demand spectrum. This is one of the drivers of lowering data cost in South Africa. So the implementing agency will be the regulator to actually to say these are the time frames that we are committing ourselves. This is if there is a glide path, this is the glide path that we foresee that will be applicable in South Africa in terms of pricing, whether they are dealing with the data network level or at a services level. So that is the process that ICASA is tasked with. So they know that what steps that need to be taken into account.
Let's talk about the issue now of a digital migration, specifically regarding the SABC. It's been a matter on the table for a really long time, way overdue. Where are we with that?
Actually, I agree with you, Thami. It's way overdue. We had an international deadline of 2015 that was set by the International Telecommunications Union. We missed that deadline. We had a SADC deadline of 2017. We missed that deadline as well. So as part of the reconfiguration of the digital technologies department is that the minister has announced a new delivery model. So the new delivery model actually entails, it's actually twofold. Currently there is stock of set-top boxes that are sitting at some of the warehouses of the South African post offices. There are about 950,000 of those set-top boxes. Those need to be rolled out. They need to go to the households that qualify. So that's the first step. The next step, because we realize that the issue, that's the first step, and the people that will be installing those set-top boxes, it's not a question of retraining new people. Each and every area we know in South Africa has an installer to actually install a set-top box. So those installers will be appointed at a local government level. As national departments, we will not be involved. We'll actually monitor as to that needs to happen is happening. That's the first part. The second part is we are embarking on a rollout of IDTVs. That is the integrated digital television sets in South Africa for the remaining households. And you may ask, why are we looking at IDTVs? We're looking at IDTVs because we realized that set-top boxes were meant to be a transition measure that was supposed to last for a couple of years. And we're actually very much behind. We're more than 4 years behind. Therefore, we want to go to television, and it will be like a question of a swap if the person has an older analog television set. So that is the process that we're looking at. The minister will be announcing the analog switch-off date as to when is it. So when it comes
Any idea of when this could be?
She will say when it is.
Are we talking years? Are we talking...
No, can't be years.
So it could be months?
when we're talking months, yes, it is months, but the months, you know, how we calculate, because we are dealing with integrated television sets. So she will be making an announcement as to when it's analog switch off. And the analog switch off is important for purposes of high demand spectrum, because in order for people to bid for a spectrum, that spectrum has to be available. And that is the spectrum that is currently under digital migration. So it's a question of staggering our processes.
And what is the impact going to be on the South African consumer?
We mean on digital migration?
On the digital migration, as you said, you're going straight into IDTV and you are bypassing the whole transmission process, which you say was just an interim measure.
So the impact actually is actually a number of impact. The first one is that South Africans will actually be in line with the international norms, because now we've missed by over 48 months the deadline. When you have an integrated TV set in your house, it means you'll be able to be in a multi-channel environment. We know how many channels people that are in free-to-air are currently enjoying. I think they are enjoying about 3 channels at the most, if not 4. So the whole issue of digital migration is to make sure that people enjoy channels that they never enjoyed before. So that is the benefit, especially for the households that could not afford a set-top box. So that's where we are as that's the first benefit. The second benefit is the one that I spoke about, that when the high demand spectrum is released, there will be opportunities, such as making sure that data prices are actually next to nothing, because there will be this availability of spectrum that will drive down prices in South Africa further. So those are the kind of
some of the issues that came up during the State Capture Commission inquiry regarding specifically the SABC and digital migration were allegations that when Mr. Motsoeneng started engaging with MultiChoice regarding the SABC Encore, etc., all discussions regarding the migration actually came to a standstill. Is that something that you can comment on? And the follow-up question to that is, how confident can the South African, consumer be that this migration will indeed happen? All the things that were obstacles, have they actually been taken care of?
So the first start on the issue of the contract, as you would know, that SABC is actually a corporation that is on its own, that has its own operating models and the likes. That agreement was actually set aside, as I understand it. And it was an agreement that had a clause that was meant to allegedly to frustrate the digital migration process of South Africa. So that clause has been set aside. So the second part of your question is, just remind me again.
The second part is all the obstacles that were there, because we've been behind. It's 5 years, it's 2020 in a few weeks. Actually, in a week's time, it's 2020. So all the things that have prevented us from meeting the deadlines, have they been taken care of? And I guess, what are those things?
I'll tell you, the things that have actually been an obstacle in South Africa is that we chose one technology, we chose set-top boxes, and we chose a model that said such set-top boxes will have to have a 30% local content provision, and there will be a procurement process. There was litigation for years on end. The last litigation was finalized at the beginning of this year, around March 2019. So those were the kind of obstacles. So this year we're saying, we're removing the procurement process. Installers, as you know, installers are those one-man Batyi kind of people. Those are the people that will be appointed at a municipal level, like a service offering like any other. A rate has been set by National Treasury that the rate of an installer shall not exceed X amount, which is a commercial rate that is applicable to any set-top box that is available. So those are the that's the thing that we're doing, that we're removing procurement, that there will not be a procurement, because those are the things that are causing unnecessary delays. And then from then onwards, then we are moving, especially the provinces, we're targeting 3 provinces at the start. That is your Free State, Northern Cape, and Northwest. And then we're saying once we clear those provinces and we will switch off those provinces, then we move to the next provinces. However, we know from our map that there are provinces that are a challenge, such as the Western Cape and Limpopo, because they have mountains. So we know that those ones will be more of a how we roll out kind of thing, but it will not be through us having done or conducted procurement processes.
Let's talk a bit now about the repurposing of the CETA as a new digital transformation agency and why that was a necessity.
Okay. Currently, CETA is a reseller. The tablet that you have in front of you, they'll buy it and resell it to a government department or any other type of technology that was there. So now at the forefront of the plan is that CETA needs to make sure that the government is transformed. It's not buying things on behalf of government. They need to make sure that when a service is being rendered, basic things such as your emails, such as you don't want to go to a department and you hear that systems are down. So a CETA needs to be responsive to those kind of things. If let's say, a specific government department interfaces with people, it actually needs to be available on time, 24 hours a day. So that is the repurposing of CETA, that CETA should not be so involved in only being a reseller, but actually must drive technology, must be at the forefront of technology. So that is the plan with CETA at this current point.
And there have also been the appointment of new administrators at both CETA and USASA, the significance of that.
So the administrators, I'll start with USASA. USASA, I'm sure your viewers at home, Thami, would understand that USASA has been embroiled with a number of issues for years. But that being set aside, USASA, in terms of an ICT integrated white paper, USASA is supposed to be a government as chief directorate within Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. The administrator is in the main tasked to ensuring that that transition happens, that the USASA is actually part of the government department, which is DCDT. That's the one thing with USASA. Then the second part, we have the administrator. USASA also has a part called the Universal Service and Access Fund, which actually funds digital migration. So the administrator actually as well will be working closely with the administrator to ensure that that fund is being utilized effectively for the next 24 months for what it was intended to do. So that is the part of USASA. Then with CETA, similarly, with CETA in the main, because CETA is being repurposed, the administrator's main role is to actually ensure that CETA is geared up for the repurposing, to actually make sure that there are systems in place without any hindrances, to ensure that CETA moves onto the digital path. And you know, like in organization, when there are changes, then people be like, no, but we like this. We always liked reselling and the kind of things. So that is why the administrator is very important.
So it's really an issue of new brooms sweeping clean because of the repurposing and because of the new direction.
Yeah.
So we thank you so much for your time and the update on the latest there. That's Nomvuyiso Batyi, the Acting Director of Communications. Do stay with us. We continue with the coverage of the day's leading stories.